Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Lava Lava. I am your host, Johnny Sualevai. I am joined by the usual. We got Michael Tan, and we also got Milford today. The other two, Spence and Atsi, weren't able to make it, but we're going to be talking on our topic, which is going to be what does it mean to be a man today? But before we go with that, I'd like to introduce you to our guest. We have a special guest with us today. His name is Fred Smith, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and what are you up to today? Likes, dislikes, favorite color, favorite flavor Kool-Aid. So, go ahead. Floor is yours.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm Fred Smith, originally from California. I have 10 siblings, so that's an interesting fact about me. Love basketball, love football, anything physical. I'm all about. I live in Canada now. I do outdoor things out here, go to the mountains, snowboard, ski, ice skate, all that good cold winter stuff. So it was in the Marines for 8 years. After separating from the Marines, I moved to Canada with my ex-wife now. But so I was married, not anymore. Went to graphic design school, became a photographer. And then during the pandemic, I stumbled into acting. So one of my friends messaged me one day, like, you want to do this bank job? That sounds kind of suspect when when you say it like that, like a bank job, like, oh, rob a bank. But a bank job, like, I was like, cool, shoot headshots of the banks. Like, no, be in it. I was like, what are you talking about? Like a commercial? I was like, I don't know anything about acting. And then, so I just took the leap and put myself out there. And I've been in like numerous shows and movies, from the new Last of Us coming out, Under the Banner of Heaven. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. Yeah, from Heartland to even Left Behind series with Kevin Sorbo directing. Got to meet Kevin Sorbo, chop it up with him for a little bit. So that's my life. I'm a father of one, single dad, full-time student in school right now for teaching. And so my plate is full, but I have enough time in the day to get things done.
Thank you. Well, Fred, we're glad to have you here with us today. And like I said, we were going to be talking about what it means to be a man today. Now, I know a lot of us here like to call ourselves men. And I know each individual person, which is my belief, is that everybody has their own definition of what they believe a man should be or what a man is. And so I'd like to open up the floor to you guys. Feel free to chime in. What do you see as your ideal image of a man? What is a man to you?
I'll start off. To me, I think from a boy to a man becomes the day when that boy decides to take accountability and responsibility for his actions. So it's not an age, it's not a mindset, it's not a beard, it's not that. It's just, I did this and I'm going to take accountability for it. I didn't do this, then I'm not going to take accountability for it. But just you accepting what you're putting out in this world, that you're going to accept the consequences for it. You're not going to put it on your mom, your dad. You're not going to put it on your brother. You're going to take it for yourself. That's my my basic definition.
Nice. Any other opinions on that?
So when T told me the topic for this episode, I was very hesitant because I didn't want our podcast to fall in that category, getting clout on your masculinity and, like all the podcasts we've seen on social media, especially with stuff like similar to Andrew Tate, like putting down women. And so my thoughts on this topic, you guys know how a lot in today's society, men are now finally coming out. They're finally able to talk about mental health. They're finally able to talk about emotions and all that. To me, yesterday's man is not today's men. So if you ask me what is a man, I wouldn't be able to tell you what a man is, other than a man is someone who has a penis, right? So that's my short thoughts for this moment on that topic.
So when Fred suggested it, we joke a lot here and there. We see news articles and memes and events, about what I guess you could call soft, or what some people would deem soft actions amongst, society, but coming from the male gender. And, we would think, oh, that's not manly. And then I'm, with all these jokes we've had in the past, or, posting on social media or just talking amongst coworkers, I thought, like, oh man, we could attack this with ease. Now think about it. And I'm just like, shoot, what is a man? You got that Matt Walsh, what is a woman? And that stops a lot of people in the tracks. And even now thinking about it, it's like, yeah, what is a man? And a lot of it's subjective. And I agree a lot with what Fred said is, being accountable, being able to be accountable for one's actions. Because at the end of the day, whether it's keeping your word or providing, for a family, it all comes down to accountability or saying stupid stuff. Like we got the idea, we got the cultural visions, of back in Samoa or African tribes or even, native indigenous people, they got their manhood periods or when it's supposed to happen. And right now I'm just ranting, but it's just, I find it kind of funny, like that we're trying to find a definition of what a man is, especially today. And it's just like, I don't know.
Nice. Well, I'm going to speak on the kind of in the dissenting to that, just because, like, I know, Prez, you said that yesterday's man is not necessarily today's man. We evolve with the times, cultures evolve, languages evolve, everything evolves with time. Usually we find a way to make things more efficient. We find a way to streamline things, and our opinions of what is necessary, what is normally appealing in all aspects, whether it's culturally, spiritually, vocally, or anything of the sort, what we find appealing changes with time. I know we all remember back in the 90s, you were with baggy jeans and t-shirts, like big tees and stuff like that used to be a form of dress. And now we're all wearing, form-fitting with bear slashes on the sandblasted jeans now. But like in music changes, everything changes and it evolves. Now, I believe, and this is my own opinion, and there's a lot of biases that push me towards this kind of opinion, that the ideal man is usually in the eye of the beholder. In my family, mostly, I know recently we lost our patriarch, and thank you for everyone who was offered their condolences. But to me, he was my ideal man. He was what I perceived to be an ideal man. I saw an interview with Shia LaBeouf where he was like talking about what makes a man is when he has children, and it kind of ties in with what Fred said. It's when you become accountable of something other than yourself, when you have to take care of something other than yourself, and you put something out there into the world. That's when you become a man. Usually they say it's the masculinity thing. You go to war, or you go to school and you provide for this and that. But until you take on the responsibility of somebody else, something else unto yourself other than yourself, you don't know what it's like to be a real man. And I kind of agree with that, just because I have 4 kids, have a wife. I'm not the sole breadwinner, but I'm the primary breadwinner of the family. And so like we do what we need to do to take care of what we need to take care of, what we find valuable enough in our lives to take care of. And so I like to stick to individualism with your own circle. Trying to fix the world's problems is hard enough if you can't even fix your own. So I believe that if you stick within your own circle, what defines you as a man is what you perceive to be what a man is supposed to be. And in my vision, or in my opinion, a man is someone who takes care of what needs to be taken care of without being told. He does it on its own. And he tries to provide the best possible product of whatever he's doing out there. And he takes responsibility for his actions. It's not necessarily the big buff guy. It's not necessarily the going to war. It's not necessarily fathering and buying all your kids fancy things. It's providing for what taking responsibility for yourself and providing and caring for your own circle. And once you have control of that, then you can expound out and help your neighbors or family members, outside family members, stuff like that. But if you can't maintain what you have in your own life, in your own circle, then it's hard for you to try to fix someone else. Because other than that, you're just a broken product trying to fix or make another broken product better. But that's kind of my opinion. I don't believe that you have to be masculine to be, what do you call it? To be a man. I also don't believe that you have to be in full control. You don't have to be the one in charge. Some people demand more respect from others. Some people, they work in tandem with their partners. Some people don't have traditional marriages. But what you do need to do is within your own group, find a way to mesh together. Find a way to work towards a better goal. So an ideal man is someone who handles business, in my eyes. Someone who takes control of himself and takes control of his surroundings and tries to be the best person that he can and be a part of society. Don't take away, add. So other than that, what do you guys think of what well, let's talk about toxic masculinity since you brought it up, Press. What do you guys think about like the idea of toxic masculinity?
I'll go ahead and chime in on this. So to me, toxic masculinity is anything that's like, it's kind of like a one-track mind, singular thought. Like there is no nuance to the thing. This is what it is. It's basically an extreme view. This is black and this is white type thing. There's no nuance. So it's like, man, the guy's supposed to get married at 20, have so many kids. The woman is stuck in her gender roles. Homosexuality is forbidden. Transgender, like they don't understand the they thems. Like that's just like almost like an obsolete way of thinking because the world, like you said, the world is changing. So the more we know, the better we could do. But some things are hard to adjust to. It's like we lived 30 plus years and everything was one way, and then within a year, it's kind of hard to adjust to flipping it to a new way of learning. It's going to take some time to implement it. The kids coming in, that's all they knew. So it's going to be easy for them to adjust. But the older people, that's why older people get phased out. Then they have to adjust to the new ways of thinking. But yeah, so back to toxic masculinity. Yeah, so that one track mind thinking, the lack of open-mindedness, and it could be detrimental, just like the old school ways. Like I disciplined my son by spanking, but within the guidelines. Like I spank him with my hand, 3 swats. That's it. There's not abuse. It's not like in every state in the United States, spanking's allowed, but it's just the nuances of whether you could do it with the belt, whether you could do it with the hand, whether you do a paddle or something. So it's like having that way of thinking, and also like the way your gender roles apply in your family. Like I'm not washing the dishes. That's a woman's job. I'm not personally in my marriage. I was the caretaker of the kids. So I worked part-time. My wife worked full-time, and I was the one that took them to school, made them dinner, made sure everything was fine. So like you said, in your circle, as long as you're doing your role and doing it to the best of your ability, that's all that matters. Nobody else could chime in like, why isn't he doing this or why isn't he doing that? It's like what I'm doing is adding value. And if I could do it at a great capacity, then I'm adding to society. Because like if the mother is in the gender role of caretaking the kids, but she's not a good mother, then you're doing a disservice to the family by taking somebody out of their element. Kind of like running Allen Iverson at center and Shaq at point guard. It's like, let's flip this around real quick to make this team work a little bit better and efficient. You're playing the wrong role. You're in the right team, but we just need to adjust your role a little bit to get this win.
I'm gonna try and attack this from a different perspective. It's also one of those things that women like to use as an excuse to try to, I'll use the word, manipulate, control their men or their man. You see all these reels and TikToks about women talking down on men because they're feminists, and they use the examples of toxic masculinity to find a reason or find clout against men in general. So that's what I think when that word comes in mind. It doesn't apply to everyone, but people always find that way to kind of sort of blame others for their problems. Even though, you can talk about, what are we having for dinner? And then the subject changes to, something like doing chores. So I might not, it kind of sounds like I'm not making sense, but I hope that you guys understand where I'm
It
trying
makes sense to me.
to
I
get
get
from.
it. I get the point you're trying to push.
All right. Yeah, I'm glad we're on this topic. For me, toxic masculinity, it's like I find it as a label or a term of convenience. So that one track mind that Fred was discussing, all that, yep, that exists, you know. But to me, all that falls under just the scope of just being a jerk, an a-hole, you know, a piece of crap, you know, being a condescending piece of trash. And sure, we can use toxic masculinity to define that, but oftentimes we find it just thrown out there, you know, just to easily further one's point in whatever argument they're making, you know, just to stop you in your tracks. Like, oh, that's toxic masculinity right there, the way you're behaving. It's like, no, just trying to hold you accountable, or I'm trying to, you know, get to the bottom of things. Because, I mean, that type of behavior, it's not just limited to men. Women can be jerks too. You know, there's some pretty, we use the term, okay, alpha males, but there's some pretty alpha women out there that you wouldn't want to mess with. You know, there's a lot of Samoan aunties out there that, whether loving or kind, they can cut you down just like that. But just to keep it short and simple, I don't really believe in the terminology. I don't necessarily, I wouldn't use it, but I mean, just plain and simple, it all comes down to being a human being for me, a decent human being, and understanding others. It existed way before that term came out, before we started commercializing it, all that great stuff.
I know, to tie in on that point, commercializing and everything like that. I remember they used to talk about men back in the days. You were told to suck it up and hold it inside. We need you to be strong. You're the pillar. You're the rock. You're the foundation of this family. And if you show weakness, then this family will fall apart. So suck it up. Keep your feelings to yourself. And then, you know, but as much as I try to be inclusive and be with the times, my relationship with my wife, I've been married 13 years. Okay. So, I remember growing up in Samoa, my mom was the breadwinner of the family, but my dad was the patriarch of the family. He held us together. My mom just made all the money. And my dad worked too. But so it was like still a team effort with my parents together. I learned a little bit this from my mom. My mom was the comfort side. My dad was disciplined, the strong arm, and the educator. Growing up, my dad had all the answers to everything, even if they weren't right. It was an answer to everything. And so growing up in my own relationship, I became the primary breadwinner. My wife stayed home because we had kids back to back to back. To my poor wife. Our kids are pretty close in age. So, you know, at one time we had one toddler, one 1-year-old, and a newborn, all at the house. And then 2 years later had another newborn. So it was like really close. And so my wife stayed home. She was a stay-at-home mom, and I worked every little job I could find to make money somewhere to provide, because we didn't want to put our kids in daycare. So at the time, with the amount that it cost for daycare, even if my wife worked a regular or a part-time job, her entire paycheck would go to the daycare. And we didn't believe in working just to keep our kids in daycare. Because if that was the case, then you just stay home and take care of the kids. At least one of us is there. We have a presence in the house from us, team Johnny and Kevon. And but so we maintain that traditional gender roles. You know, my wife stayed home, she cooked, she cleaned, took care of the kids. And when I came home from work, you know, I'd play with the kids, fall asleep on the floor. But you know, my wife always made me lunch and for work. And then when I came home, dinner was ready. And it was like that traditional married coupled life for a long time. And I used to make the joke that, like, all right, you know, I ain't got no sons, 4 daughters. I shouldn't have to wash a single dish in this house forever. You know, there's enough girls in this house to wash dishes. I hate washing dishes. I ain't doing it. And so I made that joke for years. And it kind of like You know how like when you joke about something, but it kind of there's an inkling of truth in it. I really didn't like washing dishes, and somehow it just became like the norm in my family, in my household. My kids or my wife will wash the dishes, even if I cook, make a big old mess. But it may sound not appealing nowadays, but it works for my family. Now, my kids don't cut the grass. My kids don't do yard work. They don't trim trees. They don't remove beehives. They don't fix the water heater or the furnace. You know, my girls are princesses. They're angels. So there's things that I don't expect them. They don't even know how to do, and they won't even expect it. Like they'll leave the trash sometimes, and I'll take it out. Something's wrong with the car. You know, my kids don't run outside. I do it. My wife doesn't do it. I do it. So we maintain the traditional gender roles, but it works for us, and I ain't mad at it. I don't care what anybody else got to say about it. You know, it works for my unit, and it might not necessarily work for somebody else, but this is how we work. And so if we were newlyweds, I'd have nothing to stand on, but you know, I don't see us going anywhere anytime soon. You know, 20 years is going to be right around the corner here. So, I mean, I got some meat to stand on. This works. We have time in. Now, it's become, the only difference with that is the whole suck it up thing. With me and my wife, I didn't have to suck it up because I always had her. She was my sponge. If I had a hard day, once all the kids are in bed and I'm tired and I'm having a mental breakdown, she will sit down with me and I'll talk to her. And vice versa. If she has a bad day, you know, I didn't have to hold everything in. I had somebody to share in my burdens. And that was the same person that we shared in our joy together. So, I mean, that was my outlet and it worked. But with toxic masculinity, that's just, like Fred said, one-track mind. But to me, it's pure arrogance, control. They want absolute control. And if something happens in their area, their domain, they expect to know that it happened, be notified, or by their hand or by their permission. And that's what I've always seen toxic masculinity as. You know, oh, you're not a man if you're crying, if you show tears, if you show weakness. You have to be in control of your household. No, not necessarily. You know, some people are better at things than others. So I'm not for it, but my own relationship kind of mirrors the traditional sense of it when toxic masculinity was a thing back in 60s, 70s, 80s. And I know a lot of us were born in the 80s. So that's our time frame. And even though we're millennials, we still fall into that time frame. We fall into those old routines that we've done before. We've seen or was taught around us and what was accepted when we were in our when we were soaking up information in our prime. You guys have any other is there anything else? Any other opinions, dissenting opinions, or agreeing with?
I could chime in on the generational thing, because like you said, the millennials. I read something before that millennials are like in the best spot because we're the link between the old school and the new school. Like the generation that succeeds us, who's at Gen Z, they had the internet since they were born. They had the internet since they also, all they know is life, internet. And then Generation X, who precedes us, they had to ease into the stuff. So they know the hard work. And then the Gen Z knows the smarter, not harder. And we're the combination, like the tactile and the digital world. So that gives us that advantage going forward in generations. But also, like you said about I think the most toxic form of toxic masculinity obviously stems in abuse and stems in like you said, I said the one track mind, the incels, like the involuntary celibate people. So it's like that is a sense of they want the control, but they have no control, and they feel like they're unheard, and they want what I would say anybody who wasn't asexual. So every man wants to get some. So whether it's homosexual and they want another man, or a straight man and they want that woman and they can't get that woman, and their frustration has an outlet. Everything has to be released. So like you said, you have your hard day. One of your outlets is talking to your wife. Somebody else may be punching a punching bag, playing a video game. You got to have that outlet. And if you don't have that outlet, it's going to express itself some way. So men need healthy relationships, healthy outlets. And personally, I think emotions, not crying, I don't feel that is a telltale sign of lack of emotions. I think that is just a range of emotions that is shown or unshown. Because me personally, I haven't cried in 20 years. I don't feel the need to cry though. That's the thing. It's like I can feel the sadness, but I don't feel the need to cry. And then when people brought it up to me before too, and they're like, you don't show your emotions, but I showed you anger, I showed you happiness, I showed you joy, I showed you sadness. I just didn't shed a tear. And for some people, that is the meter when they say you're not emotional means cry. It doesn't mean he was so happy that the Lakers won. They were so happy the Lions, you see his face over there. Lions doing what Lions do.
Yeah, I want to speak on what you brought up on emotions. I think sometimes in a relationship, a man shouldn't cry or show weakness in front of their significant others or spouses, mainly because one of my biggest regret is showing emotions or crying or opening up to my wife. And I'm gonna talk about this because she ain't listening to this podcast anymore. But my biggest regret is
telling.
Yeah, my biggest regret is opening up and crying towards my wife, mainly because it hasn't been normalized for a lot of women to accept that men are also human beings, that they can also be vulnerable. And a lot of what I've experienced have been on the negative aspects. Not all relationships can be like yours, Johnny. You said you open up to your wife and you have conversations and you can wind down at the end of the day. That wouldn't work in my relationship. A lot of women, they have this ideal that men should be what they see in the movies or social media. They start comparing their men or their husbands to other people's men's and husbands, basically from what they hear or the visuals. So each women have their own standards of what a man is, and when that standard, and then when a man doesn't live up to that standards, then there is no longer respect in that relationship. All that it comes down to is a lot of fighting, a lot of criticism, and it starts to affect everyone around the two people who are in this relationship, especially with the kids. So I've spoken on my regret of opening up and crying in front of my wife and trying to kind of hopefully hit a reset button every day, because I have to live to the standards of the other individual, because they're already set on what is on their mind of what a man is. Also, I just lost my train of thought right there.
You're good. You're good. I know a lot of dynamics are different in every relationship. Heck, there's people out there with multiple spouses and girlfriends, and open relationships with multiple partners. You just got to do what works for you, and make sure you find the right partner that reciprocates what you deem is success, what you find as a successful relationship. Because sometimes people end up with the wrong person, and it may seem good at first. And what is it saying? First 2 years, you can make it past first 2 years, 28 nothing. But usually the first 2 years is when you start to really understand a person, and then you can find out whether you want to be with them the rest of your life or not. Now let's talk about so I know it's a hot topic right now with toxic masculinity and men in the eyes of the world right now through social media. But I find it funny that we're starting to shy away from this unemotional, and I don't want to say unemotional. Well, like Fred said, they just either mask their emotions or they suck it up. They talk about this ideal man and holding everything in and trying to be strong the whole time. But in every instance, TV show, movie, that's the type of man that's portrayed. Usually some dashing, good-looking man that looks like Fred here, like absolutely with full facial hair and a perfect teeth and ruggedly handsome, big muscles. But and that's what women flock to. But then when it comes to saying what they really feel, I believe that people like to move with trends. If you get enough mob mentality, you get enough people to agree that this is nice, everybody, large majority, because if anyone chimes in that, it's not that great, and then we tend to see people bite back. What do you mean? You're just a hater. This. And I was like, no, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And so that's just the way culture currently is evolving through social media and just the mob agreeing mentality. Everybody is agreeing what's good and what's right and what's wrong, which has always been the way society has been for years, since the dawn of civilization or civilized society. Everybody just, if we all agree that that's right and that's wrong, then normally it'd be that's right and that's wrong. But now I'm seeing a lot of, like, what's the word? Hypocrites? No. Hypocrisies. There's a lot of hypocrisies that you're starting to see with people wanting something, but then they also agree with the opposite because everyone else is agreeing with it. Clout chasing, trying to move with it, or just trying to be original. So I believe people should just stick to their guns, what they like, what makes them happy in their relationship or in their life, in their daily life. Just stick to that, and then you'll be happy in the long run. You spend all your time trying to please everyone else around you, you're just going to be miserable and sad and taken advantage of, get eaten up alive. Now let's talk about what do you call it? We know what an ideal man is. What about I want to say unconventional relationships? That involves a male? Is their definition of a man different? Sometime about trans relationships, homosexual relationships. You think their ideal man is different, or their vision of a man?
I'll chime in a little bit. I have I have a sister who's lesbian and a brother who's gay. But non-traditional relationships. I just think it's all about the attraction, because when it basically comes down to who you choose as your partner, there's obviously attraction based on procreation. Like, I want to, like, subconsciously, you're not thinking that, like, oh, she's hot. It's like, literally, I want to have a baby with that person. So it's like, that is how we are hardwired. So it's like, what you're saying about the appearance of the movie star person, it's like, there's actually a funny song about that. So you got to take what comes with it, basically. It's like, you want that guy, but that guy is going to have a lot of girls after him. And you got to take that. That's part of the package deal. You take this other dude who doesn't look like much. You can have them all to yourself, but that's all yours. So it's like, the song I'm talking about is by Division. It's called "If I Get Caught Cheating, Doesn't Mean I Didn't Love You." He's like, you knew I was fly when you met me, and you knew a lot of women loved me when you met me. So why is it a problem now? But I digress about that. Having a 6-pack, 8-pack is not going to let you keep a woman. It may get you in the door. But yeah, I've been cheated on, everything done dirty, and I've kept myself fit since I popped out the womb. So, so guys who are listening to this and just thinking, I just need that V cut, I just need that 6-pack, and the game's gonna change. It's like that. It's not gonna change the game. It may get you to the door.
Dad bod. Dad
well, that's
bods
the thing
are
too.
in.
And that's what I'm getting at too, because since being divorced and being a single father, women have come out the woodworks, because I always post, like, me and my son do everything together, and they see how I take care of him. I'm not just an Instagram dad. So just by me having him, in the women's eyes, is like, like, probably at a subconscious level, because these are women without kids. These are 22-year-old girls. Like, what are you looking like? Girl, you know you're in my DMs. Like, you don't want none of this. So have your life flipped upside down already? But yeah, literally having a kid, they say, oh, he's a good father, procreation, shoot my shot. And it's crazy. But back to the non-traditional relationships. Yeah, I think it's just, it goes back to attraction, and then that gets you in the door. And then the relationship, whether it's going to work, that's based off personality. You got to have things in common. You got to have, you got to grow together, actually, too, because a lot of people say when you meet, you guys met here. So it doesn't necessarily mean you guys are going the same direction. You guys just may have been at that intersection. When you met, you were equally yoked. You guys were on even par. And that's why you guys decided to date. But if you don't keep growing with each other, in 5 years, you're going to grow to who you're going to be in that next 5 years. And that may not necessarily be in the same place as your partner. And you have to accept that once making that commitment to marriage or commitment for a long-term relationship.
Just life experience and maturity changes an opinion. You may start off wanting something at 21, and then you go through life sometimes a lot worse or a lot better than other people. And then your priorities tend to shift to what you deem is better, and it evolves over time as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something very brief. I like to live my life. One of the two concepts that I'm bringing up is mind your damn business and live life in pursuit of your own happiness. And I know all the Christians out there are screaming heathen, or you're gonna burn in hell for not living in accordance to what God says in the Bible and all that. But you know, I've always been an advocate of people are here the same as you, same as all of us. We're trying to be happy. We're trying to live our life and survive in this world before we die. So I'm along that line of, you know, you do what you gotta do. It doesn't matter who you love. I wouldn't say what you love, but I would say who you love. But yeah, that's my brief thought on that.
We're all fathers here. So I want to kind of pivot in a little different direction. So Fred and I, we both have sons, and I have two daughters as well, and Johnny and Michael, fathers of daughters. So let me ask this question. For someone like Fred, like what kind of man would you hope to see your son become? And then for Michael and Johnny, like what kind of man or dominant partner would you like to see your daughters end up with? Or what kind of man would you see and raise red flags immediately? Because I've expressed it multiple times. I've been a dirtbag, so I recognize them. So what kind of man will make you want to pull your daughter aside? Like, hey, you might want to chill out a little bit. This dude's sneaky. He think he's sly, but game recognized game, and that's one snake.
Well, I can start off with this one. So obviously, what kind of man that I see my children, or not even, okay, what kind of spouse or partner or whatever they deem to call themselves, or even if they're alone, what do I want them to be? If they choose the traditional relationship, I want my children ultimately to be happy, be safe, and be confident in whatever they do, to be taken care of. If they do traditional, I want the guy to be, super rich, absolutely does not mind me living off of his tab as a retirement plan, but I want him to be just good. I want him to be good to my kids, to my daughters, whichever one. Obviously, people aren't perfect, but I want him to treat them right, treat them with respect. And I want to be able to turn my back and leave her in his care and not have to think about it. That's the main thing for me. If I have to worry who I left her with, then it's not going to be good at all. Like you said, I don't ever want him to end up with someone like me. Well, 19, 20-year-old me, 22-year-old me. Yeah, success. Oh, she's pregnant. Okay, cool. Time to buck up, pull up my big boy shorts, handle business. But I want them to be happy, and I want them to be safe. Ultimately happy and safe. And whether that's with a man or a woman or by themselves. Hell, you can hang out with me until we all grow old together. If you don't want to get in a relationship, that's fine too. You're working. But yeah, that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, I fall along the same lines. I want my kids to find someone who makes them happy, who respects them, and someone who's responsible and accountable for their relationship or the happenings or things that are revolving around their relationship. And at the same time, I do want my kids to understand that the other person that they're in a relationship with is their own individual, right? They have to understand that and stop trying to change that person or having them conform to what their standards is, because that's where the root of all problems in relationships is. If someone doesn't live up to your expectations, then you'll feel let down, and you start criticizing and you start getting to fights. But ultimately, I want my kids to try to avoid situations where, or putting themselves in situations that they wouldn't want to be in. So just like the golden rule, do unto others as you would do unto them.
Nice. I'll chime in. And yeah, I have a son. If he ends up like me, then I would be happy. I don't think I've done that many dirtbag moves in my life. A little bit dirty. You can't be playing in the game with a clean jersey at the end of the game. Play baseball, you're going to get a little, if you're playing. So that's the thing. If you're on the sidelines, if you're on the bench, then you can have a clean jersey. You got a perfect record of 0 strikeouts, 0. Yeah. But yeah. So if he follows my lead, I would be happy and honored and accepting of that. But obviously, as men, we took bits and pieces of different archetypes that were in our lives. We took from our dad, our uncles, our friends' dads. So we saw it, the good, bad, and the ugly. We saw what people could get away with. Yeah, we added that to our repertoire knowingly, consciously or subconsciously. We added that to our move and our skill set. So yeah, it's just like I see the traits he gets from me, and I see the traits he gets from his mom, and I'm trying to break the negative traits from both of us that I can see. A lot of that easy to give up on things when you get challenged, stuff like that. So it's like he's in the lying stage right now. So trying to get over on me, or like, boy, I knew I invented the game. What you talking about? You trying to get by on me? I've been knowing you were hiding behind that bed, and I knew you weren't dressed. I know you didn't brush your teeth. I'm gonna go in there and look in the sink and see no toothpaste. And yeah, so he's like, how do you know this? It's ridiculous. But yeah, just implementing the right things in him, because obviously I say your kid is your kid until they go to school, and then they're the community's kid, because they have so many influences that you don't have a choice to even know what they're getting, like was getting put in their head. So just like Johnny said, when the mom is at home, they had control over what they learn from sun up to sundown. When they're in daycare, they had a little control, but they're going to be picking up this from that kid at school. They're going to be picking up that bad habit. They talk back to their parents. They say what? They call their mom by their first name. So it's like once they get into school, they're the community's kids, and all you can do is put the best kid out to the community, is a parent service to your community. You can live out in the woods. You can live out in the mountains if you want to have your kids locked away. That's what my sister did. She homeschooled her kid from birth to 20, and you can see the negative. You can see the negative effects from that too. You can't be smothering that baby, because that baby's gonna grow up to be a little peculiar. But yeah, so my parenting style, like I grew up in a house with an abusive stepdad, so that's why I overcorrect with my son. Like I'm loving, I'm still stern and I have discipline with him, but it's never abusive. So when he grows up, he's not going to have that backstory when dealing with his kids and his spouse, having a house with no domestic violence, having a house with no abuse. So that may be something he has to learn, because I knew it. So I sway that I never implement it or show it to him. But that lesson is in me, and it's not something that it could be passed down, because they never seen it. A good thing I heard last week was, the worst thing that happened to you is the worst thing that happened to you. Meaning that's a personal experience. A kid that hasn't experienced that thing that happened to you, they're going to have to go through it themselves. But even if that is getting hit by a pillow, that was the worst thing that happened to them. So they're going to cry like the world is over. So yeah, so that is one thing that I think parents have to know. Like, the worst thing that happened to you, worst thing that happened, can't pass those experiences on.
Yeah, that reminds me of a experience yesterday. Me and my family were going shopping at this outlet, and my daughter, not paying attention, walked straight into those scanners. So there's a scanner on the side and a scanner in the middle where where the scanners that beeps when people stealing. So my daughter walked straight into it. I don't know if she wasn't paying attention or whatever she was doing, but she smacks face first into that. And then I started like screaming at her. Why wasn't she paying attention, or why this or why that? And I started scolding her. And you, Fred, you reminded me of that. Our kids are learning. They're growing up. They don't know the dangers out there in the world. This is their first time experiencing life. And we have to let them be themselves out in the world. But at the same time, we have to, be a stern parent and guide them in that direction. It doesn't mean when your kid does something little and you start scolding them over that little thing, because, everything you do as a parent, it affects your child.
For our listeners, the viewers out there, we talked a little beforehand, and I let my brothers here know that Fred's built like a tank. He's built like a machine. And his experience with abuse, he shared before on, he did a little video sharing his experience, and I was just like, wow, can't believe he went through that. And just being built as he is, like a machine, shoulders for boulders and elite athleticism. He can jump out the gym, whatnot. He has every excuse, to be an angry dude, to go around taking people's lunch money and just owning them, letting them know he's better than them because he's been through this and that. But he's one of the most humble people you could ever meet. And he's real on there with his son. And if you see his son is built like him, 2.0. He's a happy young man, because of his father. But just knowing a little bit about Fred and everything he's been through, and man, single father, doing the acting, going through school, and still, engaging in his hobbies, whether it's losing in Street Fighter online or putting out hip hop, bars every week, which are fire, by the way. Check them out. Hey, it's great to know someone like Fred that's overcame that, and, just being himself, being accountable for what he does. I don't know where I'm going with this, but Fred's a great man and a great example. And I've been surrounded, the Usos on this podcast, just through life, to have great examples of that I can grab from to be a man. And I just thought our viewers and listeners should know a little bit about Fred and why we're having him on, and why I thought, man, I was excited to bring him on, because, we've typically had Polynesian guests, and that's who we are. But at the same time, we're going behind the lava, and he's a fellow veteran and someone articulate and great that I believe others could learn from. So, yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for those kind words. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's all part of our story. We all have a origin story, and I think that probably adds to my story, a little why I am the way I am. Well, obviously it does, but it's like I read somewhere too that kids that were abused as adults, they want to overcompensate with physical fitness sometimes. I guess maybe it's like a defense mechanism, like that's never going to happen to me again. I'm going to be the strongest, toughest, because you're always that scared little kid when it comes down to the core, who couldn't defend your mom, you couldn't defend yourself at that point. So by the time you become an adult, you put so much armor on that you're never going to get hurt again. So it's something to look at when you look at people. Everybody has their origin story. Like you said, the golden rule: do as you want others to do unto you, and you'll be straight. Because people put on that armor, but they hurt people. So sometimes they were hurt, so they're putting that pain back on somebody else, and it's just misguided, and nobody goes to therapy, so they don't know what the root is, and it's just a cycle of anger and trauma. But I'm trying to break that cycle, have my generations not falling over the same hurdles that my mom fell over, my grandparents fell over. It's time for everybody to do better. So it's like we just got to look in the mirror, see what we could improve on, and see what we could add to these kids. We could do so much with them, but we just got to have the best intentions.
Yeah, I think that defense mechanism skipped over me.
I don't know. I have a different kind of armor. Mine tend to be a little softer on the midsection area. It's a very loving armor that surrounds me with joy and happiness. It's my wife kind of grew up in that same kind of situation, similar, not the exact same. Everybody's different, but she always used to tell me because when she met my parents, my wife says all the time, like, I love my in-laws, and I remember she used to tell me, like, early on in our relationship, she was like, at least you're lucky you had both parents, stuff like that. And early on, I told her from jump, I'm like, if you think for 1 second that I'm ever going to be upset by the fact that I had two parents and you didn't, no, I'm grateful. I'm sorry. Situations happen. Bad things happen to other people. But if I'm supposed to feel sorry for that and hate myself because I got it better than you, no, because you would, if it on the reverse side, you would be saying the same thing, So I'm glad. Yeah, I'm fortunate. I'm grateful, and I'll say it every day. I'm grateful for that, for the parents that I had, and I will never be ashamed of it. But then, I try to do, and it's the reverse for Fred. You grew up in a tough situation, and then you try to mitigate it or expound and be better, right? For me, it's the opposite. I'm just trying to emulate what I saw as perfection, and I'm chasing someone that in my opinion, was the best there ever was. So my ideal man is closer to what he was. So, and that's just the way it goes. Everybody has their ideal picture. Everybody has their ideal situation, and everybody has their own sense of happiness. It's up to you to find your happiness. If you're relying on somebody else to provide it for you, then you're never going to be truly happy, because it's going to be one-sided every single time. Well, I'd like to thank you, Fred. Thank you for coming out. I appreciate you coming out here and sharing your experiences. And my name is Johnny, and this is Behind the Lava Lava. We'll catch you next time.